We're first having a look at the process of analysis for language analysis, analyzing argument. We'll come back to this later in the lesson towards the end and look at an example, but I would like you to understand it and remember it for now because we won't come back to the step by step of it. But you should be analyzing persuasive language techniques that the author has used, like statistical evidence, rhetorical questions, using this what, how, why process, because this ensures that you are doing everything that you're being assessed on and you can get those marks. So for every persuasive language technique you want to put in the body of your essay as evidence, first you need to write about what language the author is using. This means attaching a quote and actually naming the persuasive language technique and just explaining, if needed, what that persuasive language technique means. Then you have the option of either analyzing the how or the why or both. And this will depend on how relevant that PLT is, which is what I'll call them from now on. How relevant you think the PLT is. Do you want to analyze it in depth? Then you may complete both the how and the why analysis. Or do you think intended effect is relevant? Or do you think the contribution to the author's argument is relevant to analyze? So we'll look at it in more detail. Starting with the what, okay? So this is your persuasive language technique. What you're trying to answer is what is the author doing? You quote and you name the persuasive language technique. Looking at an example, the author makes use of overtly negative language, such as terrible human being, to establish Chris Brown in an unfavorable light. So, overtly negative language, that's the name of our PLT, negative language. This is the quote that's been embedded, and this is the explanation of this evidence. It's used to establish Chris Brown in an unfavorable light. And this one uses this example is it all about connotations, negative connotations, reminiscent of gang violence and brutal street fights. Again, has to be quoted. And there was another example there. Now, again, we said you can analyze the how or the why of your selected PLT or both in the body of your essay. So the how is the answering the question, how is the audience being positioned by the author? Remember that it's not the actual effect, so you need to use that low modality language. It is the intended effect. It's what the author is aiming for. So use appropriate language. I've highlighted some of the ones. The author is inviting readers to do something, is engendering a certain emotion, a sense of fear in this case, seeking to marginalize. So seeks, aims, incites, feelings of, invites, encourages. That's the kind of vocabulary you may use, and add more to the list because you don't want to be repeating yourself in your essays when you write about intended effect. So as an example, thus the author invites readers to consider how their support of Brown might endorse his harmful behavior. So we can see, based on what wording has been used, that it's talking about intended effect. Notice that it says thus, so you must have an explanation of your PLT preceding this in order for this to make sense, because it needs to be clear how the intended effect is created through the language. And we've got a few more examples there. So this is another example with high and low modality language to avoid fence sitting. So make sure you don't sound so definitive. And these are kinds of phrases you could be using for your how analysis. Now, the why is the most complex and one that you need to make sure you've scattered throughout your essay because it can fetch you a lot of marks for that reason. But the why is answering the question, why does this support the author's argument? Essentially, you link in how the persuasive language technique either supports and enhances your topic sentence, your sub-argument, to make it more convincing, or how does it link into the contention, the author's big argument, the main argument of the piece, to enhance that contention and make it more convincing. So this is that's exactly what it is. So as an example, as such, the author creates a comprehensively negative image of Brown. So by creating a comprehensively negative image of the celebrity based on all the language with negative connotations that was used to describe him, that furthers the idea that he should not be allowed into Australia. And that second half of this sentence is the why, okay, and how it furthers the argument. Another example, thus the author seeks to inspire a unity amongst her readers to ensure they all criticize how celebrities get a free pass when it comes to misdemeanors. As you can see, this is the bit where you need to get creative. Don't forget that you need to make it clear how this occurs. How is that argument more convincing? So notice here it says, by inspiring a unity amongst her readers to make them feel like they're part of one group. Okay, this effect is created.